Hi, welcome to Viessmann Manufacturing. Today we're in our training facility. We're going to be doing some troubleshooting on the F4 fault. Next, let's go take a look at our pro resources and see what the F4 fault was caused by and see how we're going to repair the F4 fault on this boiler. Now that we went and saw the F4 fault on our fault code checker, if you want to see how to get that fault code checker on your phone, check out that video as well. So for this fault on the F4, we'll get started. Things that I would check before I even break out any meters or anything like that. This is my gas turned on. Do I have propane in the tank? These are two quick, easy checks that you can check by looking at your propane tank and making sure that we have propane in the tank. Or we can throw our manometer on there, which I'll be going over later on in this presentation. But let's start off with our checking power to our gas valve. So I'm going to go over a few of the causes and effects of what could cause and how to fix them all. It could be one thing, but I'm going to show you how to check all the different things for an F4 fault. So let's power the burner down. First thing I want to check is get my meter. I'm going to put my meter on DC current, and we're going to check what the power is coming through our gas valve. When you take your plug off the gas valve, you're going to get less resistance. So there's two ways you can check this plug. You can put your meter on AC and check from the green wire to the black and get 60 volts, and then from the other black to your ground and get 60 volts. And then you combine those, you get 120 volts. Here on your plug 35, as you can see, as our plugs are all marked for our gas valve, as well as all our other plugs on the boiler, we can check it with DC current by going to black. So that's what we're going to do here on this test here. So we're going to take our meter and put it on the two outside plugs. And we'll check our voltage going to the gas valve. So normally what I see here with no resistance, normally you're going to get about a 106, 108 VDC. When it's off when it's connected to the burner, you're going to get that 106, 108 because you're going to have some resistance through the coil as well. So we're just going to take our prongs, stick them in our two outer test ports, our plugs on our control. If you have smaller, they work pretty well, but we're going to now power our burner back on. And you'll check our voltage here. And it should be roughly around 127 VDC when it goes to fire. Just make sure you're not touching any of your wires, connections. We go to serve here to get the boiler to fire. I'll start it with 20%. Hit OK. We'll see the boiler fire. So there you go. There's your 107 VDC, 106, 108. So now you can see that we have the VDC rating on the boiler. Just make sure you're in DC current when you're reading the gas valve. And like I said, you can do it in AC current as well, but there you are, we got the 108 there. So we'll power that on, so now we know that we got the right voltage to our gas valve. Next thing we want to check is our flame sensor and our flame sensor reading, as well as we can check our ground. Ground is very important on this boiler here when you're doing flame sensor readings with your ground. So we're going to take the cover off the boiler now, off the control. There's two ears on the sides here and then two on the bottom. You pop those off, and then now you can see where your transformer is and your grounds. Here's your mechanical ground. So to test this ground going up to your control, you're going to test from from here to your ground, and make sure that you have a good wire in between as well. Make sure there's no resistance or break or anything touching on the metals, because any bad flame sensor reading you're not going to like. The other thing that I would recommend as well is if your gas is not readings are low, we have an inlet gas screen as well. So I would pull the whole burner right off so we can check our electrode to our flame burner tube itself. And that way we make sure we have the right distance between our burner tube and our flame sensor and our igniter. Make sure there's no holes in the burner tube or anything like that, because that also can cause an F4 fault. So now that we got our readings on the gas valve and where our meter is reading correctly, next thing we want to check is, like I said, we'll check our ground wire, make sure that's okay, or we can do a flame sensor reading as well. So for this here, I use the alligator clips on my meter, just so I get a good connection. Sometimes I find that the boots get in the way, but make sure you're not touching these when they're connected, because you'll get a good jolt. I do this here first because I'm going to then check the ohms resistance on my cable itself next. When we do this here, we're going to fire the boiler. We should see the boiler fire, and then we can watch our readings here. We'll put it back into the test mode. Each time you have to wait for it to go through its test cycle. And then hit the mode button. All right, so now you can see our reading here at the bottom. So we got it on low fire. The boiler did fire. So we're at 5.6, so we're still pretty good. Anything below 3.5 is bad. So we're still in the good range here. The boiler is firing. We could go up to high fire and check it as well, but now we see that our flame sensor is reading above 5.7 in that range. So the boiler is running, so we can check that. So we check that off the list. We're getting the proper flame sensor reading off there, and that's in DC microamps. All right. As the flame gets hotter, our readings will go up higher. So now you can see that test there. The next thing, while I have my wire off, we'll check the wire itself. And you can see right on here it has 5 ohms, so 5 kilo ohms written right on there. So we'll check this next. And see what we're getting for an ohms resistance. So now we got to put it on ohms. So now you can see we're about 4.7. Anything under 4.5, they recommend you replace the cable itself. So that's how you check the cable on this here. And as you can see, we're in the right ohms. We're above 4.5. So the cable is fine. So we can plug all this back in. So we've checked our electrodes, we checked our ground, make sure we had a good ground coming to the boiler as well, to make sure that we're not getting any interference to the boiler. Next, I would check my gas pressures to make sure that the gas pressures are correct. Other things you can check is if you're doing propane, you can check for your copper lines, make sure that they're not breaking down from suffocation, so that your propane will stop actually breaking down the copper tubing if you're running copper tubing for your gas piping over to the boiler. So that's one thing you could check as well. And that will actually start to clog up your gas screen. So during your annual maintenance, it's good to take a look at that inlet gas screen on your boilers, on anybody's boiler really, because the effects of gases and getting clogged. So now I'm just going to grab my manometer here. And all we have to do is I'll shut my gas off for a second. And we just need our small little screwdriver. And we're just going to crack the inlet of our gas coming in. Maybe a half a turn or so. You don't have to take the screw all the way out. And then just put your manometer on there. Turn the gas back on. So we can see what we're getting for our standing pressure. So now, as you can see, we're about 8.47 of our standing pressure. That means we're just standing there and nothing's happening. Leave your manometer hooked on there and let's go back through the test. Turn the boiler back on. Remember, it's 4 to 14 for natural gas and 10 to 14 for propane. So we're in the right range here. I'm going to go back into the test. Get the boiler to fire again. So now you can see we had a little drop going into low fire, but it kind of steadies back off. So we can check our low fire. We're still well within the range that we should be. We didn't have a great substantial drop. If you had a big drop in there, that to me is a volume issue, or it could be a clogged gas line or something like that. If you see a big drop when you go to light. Same thing if we go into high fire. Remember, serve, and then we're going to go up to 20%. And now we're going to go all the way up to 100%. All right, you'll see the boiler go up to high fire now. And we can watch our manometer. Still rising. But it's not dropping dramatically. So that means we got some good volume, meaning that our gas piping is big enough. And that's a big issue that I used to see in tech support, was gas piping too small. And the other thing is, remember about your elbows. Elbows equivalent to feet. Sometimes we forget to measure all those elbows on your gas piping and then we're undersized. So now you can see our pressure still holding steady. We didn't even drop under an inch. Any more than an inch, I recommend to start looking at a volume or a pressure problem with your gas. So that checks out good as well. So we'll shut the boiler back down. Shut our gas back off, and then close our gas. So all the things that we checked for the F4 fault, one last thing you might want to take a look at is your venting. Make sure there's no venting issues where you can push through there. In this scenario here, if it was a bad gas valve, you would replace the gas valve by pulling this one plug off. Remember, we do have our gas shut off. The one brass nut here, and then these two torque 30 screws. The torque 30 screws will take the gas valve right off. Remember, if you do have an orifice in there for propane, and I'll show you that right now. Hold on there. So for this fault here, we'll change the gas valve. Here's your gas valve, the part number itself. What your new gas valve looks like, and it comes with the new rubber grommet here, as well as 2 new screws, in case you drop your screws on the floor and you can't find them again. Remember, on propane, you're going to have an orifice inside here. So make sure you save that orifice when you change the gas valve. So you got 2 screws, 2 torque head screws, the 2 T30s. And then here's your inlet gas screen is inside here, so you can inspect that too. As if it gets clogged, you can clean it out, or if it's really bad, you might want to just replace the gas valve itself, because once stuff gets inside here, it could damage the gas valve itself. You have your own torque wrench is fine. We also sell a tool kit for our boilers here. Just remember, there is a fiber washer on here. A nice tray inside here you can put your tools in. Just so you can see how a gas valve is done. So there's your little rubber boot, and in the back here there's a little nipple that this slides over, just so make sure when you're putting the new gas valve on, you get that rubber boot over that nipple on the other side. Once you do replace the gas valve, you're going to make sure that you get your analyzer on here as well, and make sure that we're running in the proper CO levels. What you'll find with Viessmann's, everything's nice and easy to work on. You can get to everything. If you have to get to back things, this is the combi unit here as well. I find the 4 bolts that you pull off your hex heads for your burner, take your one nut. This all comes out in one piece. You can inspect your burner tube. You can do all of that, and then it allows you to get to anything else in the back of the boiler here. That's what I've always liked about Viessmann all the years I've been putting them in. It was the ease of service. Just make sure you put that fiber washer back in like I did. You'll know right off if you didn't. Just going to plug in our wire back in here. Make sure everything's plugged back in. Put our cover back on. Close it up. Turn your gas back on. You can do a quick gas check with some bubbles or a sniffer if you'd like, and just make sure you have no leaks when you're done. We'll power the boiler back on as it goes through all its test cycles one more time. Now we're going to go into serve mode just to see the boiler fire before we go, to make sure we fix the problem. So hit your mode button and then hit your arrow until serve is flashing. Once serve is flashing, we hit OK. As you see, it comes with off, and then we can go up to 20%. Now at 20% or 20% is low fire on this boiler. At 20%, after you change the gas valve, they want you to throw your analyzer up into the port, your fluid test port on top of the boiler. Once we do that, we can hit OK. And we want to do a test at low fire. So you'll see the boiler come on. And with an F4 fault, the boiler's going to try to fire 3 times. It's like 3 strikes you're out. And then on the 3rd try, if it doesn't fire, you get the F4 fault. So now you can see the boiler has fired, so we have fixed the problem. This is where you want to check your CO2s and the O2s as we see in the charts in our manuals. Once we do the low fire test, we can now come over and hit the mode button once again until serve is flashing. Hit OK. Now we're going to go from that 20%, we're going to go all the way to 100%. Once it hits 100%, we now hit OK. Still having your analyzer in the boiler, you'll now see the boiler modulate up and go up to high fire. Once you go up into high fire, then you have your analyzer in there. Make sure you're within the range of our CO2s and our O2s that we have in our manuals. So you know you're within the scale. The new gas valve's adjusted correctly. And if there's any type of issue with the newer gas valve and it needs adjustments, they want you to call tech support to make any type of gas valve adjustments. Just remember, with gas valves and propane and different fuels, at different times of the year, you're going to get different readings. So you might put this in the winter time and get one reading, and then go back in the summertime and get a different reading. That's kind of normal because the air quality changes, heavier ears, lighter ears. So once we tested that, we just make sure that we hit the return arrow, and that will take us out of the test mode. So right now we're getting a call for heat, so that's why the boilers continue to stay running. With that being said, this concludes our F4 fault for the day. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us here at Viessmann Academy Training Lab at our live facility, where everybody can come here and do what I did today, changing the gas valve as well. That's all part of the training. And remember, these classes are for licensed trained professionals. Look for all our other videos that we have been making for troubleshooting, and thanks for coming to Viessmann Academy's training site. Have a nice day.